Welcome to Bite-Sized Bass Talk with Hagen and Hayes. Today we're talking about writing in fingerings in music. Hi Susan, how are you?
I'm doing well, David. How are you?
Very well, thanks. What would you like to say on this fascinating subject?
Well, I really find that I end up sort of having to, I call it plow through a lot of music in a short period of
Mm,
time. And I really think it's important, especially when I'm first starting to learn a new piece, to jot my fingerings in. It takes no time. Um, but if I have them written in, the next day when I come back to it, I know what I was doing, so I don't have to sort
mm.
of rethink the wheel. But also, after I've performed the piece, a month, 6 months, a year later, when I go to return to it, I might perform it again. I'm not relearning it from scratch. But the third reason is when I'm teaching, I like to be able to say to my students, here are some fingering suggestions for you. And not that they have to do them, although I kind of feel like that might be smart sometimes. No, but it's a bouncing off point for them, and they're not struggling the first couple days of working on the new piece. But now, do you write fingerings in your music?
I do all the time, but I write like you, I write in the ones I need.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I tell my students is um, keep your memory and your brain for great things like Shakespeare or Keats or Wordsworth or any of those things. Not bass fingerings, that's stupid. Write them in, write the ones you need. The one thing I don't like is when people write them in almost for every note.
Oh,
And
yes.
then you can't see. You just need the ones often where you change position or you change string or something
Yeah.
like that. And my teacher, František Pošta, still wrote in fingerings right up to the end of his life. And for a player like that, if he can do it, then it's certainly good enough for people like me and my students.
Right. Yes. I've had students that will write it over every single fingering, and I take the eraser, or if it's their iPad, the little, pencil. Um, it's not necessary, and that'll clutter the music, I think, and that it's
Mm,
like there's such a thing as too much information.
mm,
Um, But yeah, like you, just where I'm going to shift or where I'm going to cross strings. Or sometimes I'll have a passage that might not have any shifting or string crossing, but somehow my brain gets muddled. And so I'll write one or two things in there, just pivotal moments to prevent in that performance like panic of, oh my God, what was I supposed to do here? There was a time where I would write in very little because I thought that was the more highly educated way
mm.
to approach music. But then I would perform and I would have this feeling of, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing now. And I don't like that feeling either.
That's exactly my point. Is when you have no fingerings, 99 times out of 100, you'll remember them.
Right.
But that one time out of 100, when you're doing an audition or a performance or an exam or something like that, that's the one time when you suddenly question yourself. And that's the one time when you don't want to question yourself.
Yeah.
And by having the fingering in there or the shift or whatever it is, it just means you don't have to think about it. It's already there. And I do it with students. It's so strange. I've got a student this evening and I write the fingerings in and he'll come and he'll play. And I think, well, that's a strange fingering. Did I not write the fingerings in? And then I look at the music. And, oh, I did write the fingerings in. He just ignored it. All right. I thought it was me. And I like it. And the other thing as well as a writer, I know that it's the hard thing is getting the text onto the paper. The easy thing is revising it and editing it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with fingerings. If you have something there, you have some structure in place. You can always revise it. You can always change the fingerings because as you play something, you might suddenly find you come up with a better fingering. But if you have a set of fingerings, I always again tell my students that it either gets better or it doesn't improve. If it gets better, you've got the right fingerings. If it doesn't get better, maybe it's not the right fingering.
Yeah.
Maybe rethink it. But you
Yep.
have to start from somewhere. You can't just play all fingerings all the time.
Right. Last week when I was out at Tanglewood, I was teaching a lesson to a student and I had given him my fingerings and he was doing them. And I said, let me grab your bass for a second. And I tried it. I said, I don't think that's the fingering I would do anymore. And he looked at me shocked. He said, well, that's what was in your music. I said, yep. But I think as I get older and hopefully get better or, whatever, I come up with other solutions. And I said to him, I think that this passage will sound a little better if we just change this one thing here. And he sat down and he played it and it worked. And I said to him, this is why I write things in. Then I've got an eraser. I can change them. My approach to the fingerboard is slightly different than it was 20 years ago. And I think in a good way, I hope in a good way. But, there's not just one acceptable fingering for any passage. But if you have it written down, you know what you were doing. And then if you want to change it, you can.
It's nice. I like this. When I come back to music I studied with Poshta, this is 1986, 87, and his fingerings are still in there. And I have to say, most of them are still valid all
Yeah.
these years later, which is really nice. But again, I'm the same, and I will change my fingerings.
Yeah.
And just because you did the same fingering in 1990 doesn't mean in 2025 it's going to be the same fingering. It might be. You may have found the best fingering, but sometimes you come up with new solutions, and there's nothing wrong with that. I
Yeah.
think that's how you grow. And I enjoy using fingerings as a way of teaching because I can ask why I'm playing the A on that string and not on that string, and why I'm using that second finger and not a first finger.
Yeah.
To hopefully make them think, so that on another passage in a different piece or something like that, this suddenly it comes back to them. I think, oh right, yeah, that's why I'm playing on the D string and not the G string because of. So
Right.
I find it endlessly fascinating. But
Yeah.
then I'm a nerd, so I'm quite happy in
Well,
my world.
I think we're both bass nerds, but it's a good thing. I think our listeners probably are also.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's great. And I strongly encourage people to write in their fingerings. Never use pen. Use pencil if you're working on paper so you can erase it and change it. But write things in. You'll remember tomorrow and you'll remember in 6 months what you were doing.
Well, the other thing I forgot to say is sometimes it's quicker for you to write the fingerings in than ask a student to do it.
Oh, God,
The
yes.
number of times I've told them the fingering and they've got it wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
just take the music from them.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, oh wow, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have learned, and sometimes, and sticking separate pages together. That's the other thing. It's
Yeah.
easy if I do it correctly first time.
It's true.
Because often there'll be one page upside down, and
Right.
yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
there's a
There,
quicker way.
it's true. There are things I think is more helpful and more time efficient. Our lessons with our
Mm.
students are finite. There's a certain amount of time and then we have to be done.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
I'll say, okay, first finger on the C, four on the D, and then you're going to shift two for the E and four for the F. You don't have to write all that in, but that's what you're going to do. And then all of a sudden they'll say, all right, so one on the D and four on the E, and then shift to the F. I'm like, no, let me just write it in. And then they can see it and they'll see the
Mm,
logic behind. But also, you're right, it saves time. Then we
mm,
can work on the nitty gritty musical stuff
exactly.
more
That's
fun.
right. Yeah,
Good. All right. So I think we agree. Write in your fingerings.
definitely.
Good.
Right, but only write in the ones you need.
Yeah, no more. Don't clog up your music with too much information.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for listening to our bite-sized podcast for Bass Talk with Hagen and Hayes, and we look forward to chatting with everybody again soon. Bye.
Bye.